My name's Zbricks, and welcome to the Zbricks Show. This is episode 17, and if you don't know what the Zbricks Show is, it's a show where I talk to different members of the online LEGO community, whether it's through YouTube or Instagram, and today I'm going to be talking to Building with Steve. Would you like to advertise your, in this case, Instagram?
I'm mostly on Instagram right now. My handle is BuildingWithSteve, all one word. I have a Twitter as well. Post the same stuff there. And hopefully I will eventually get around to uploading some YouTube videos.
Awesome. So, if he hasn't uploaded anything to YouTube yet, but I'll probably have his channel linked so you can still go subscribe to it for when he starts uploading, and I'll have his Instagram linked in the description as well. So, anyways, let's get on to some quick starter questions. So, first up, when did you start building with LEGO, and what were some of your first sets?
I started building as a kid, probably before I can really remember. I built with it, tons, and my parents got me a lot of stuff. Like most adult fans, I went into some dark ages, like in high school and college, and then after college, I got back into it. Sort of out of fun, I thought it'd be fun to start building some sets, and then my wife, I was then just my girlfriend, decided to get me the Parisian restaurant modular, and she thought it would be fun if we built it together, and that sort of opened the Pandora's box. And luckily, we went to my parents' house, and they still had all of my childhood LEGO.
That's nice.
They had not thrown any of it out. And I had some really nice stuff, like one of the monorail sets, so I do have at least more monorail track than most AFOLs can claim to have. But it was really amazing to me that all the stuff was still there.
That's awesome. See, what I've heard from most of the people I've interviewed that are AFOLs is that they lost all their LEGO at some point. But it's really nice that your parents didn't throw any of it out. So,
yeah, and it was interesting because it was obviously unsorted. It was all disassembled. But my wife and I went into a toy store, and they had some classic LEGO sets on display there. And I recognized one of them as one that I had owned as a child. And when we got home, I looked on the internet for instructions, and I found it. And then I started sifting through one of the bins of loose parts, and I was able to reassemble the whole set. And that's when it sort of clicked with me that everything was still there. I haven't tried to reassemble all of it, but I am guessing there are very few, if any, missing parts.
That's great. So, I mean, how many sets do you think there were in total in that whole lot of stuff?
Well, as a kid, I thought it was a lot of sets. And then as an adult, obviously my collection is much, much bigger. I think all of the stuff that I had fit into, one 60-quart Tupperware bin as a kid. And I thought that was a lot, and now I own probably at least 10 bins of that size of unsorted brick, and obviously many other sets that are assembled.
That's awesome.
But it's still nice to have, a lot of those were classic space sets, and like I said, a monorail, all really nice, the old classic sets.
Yeah, that's great. Man, I just talked to, I think it was Fickenbricks that I talked to, and he had all this classic space and stuff, I believe that's what it was, growing up, and then it was all lost at some point. So, he's still trying to grow his whole collection back. But that's got to be so nice to have had most of what you had still now. And that's something cool too, is knowing that this set that you have now is the same set you had when you were, I don't know, in elementary school. That's just a cool feeling. So
and just being able to work with some of that stuff as well. I have a city that with my modulars, but I wanted to put a monorail in the city, and again, just having that monorail track and finding the motor in there and popping a battery in and having it still work. I was able to build a custom monorail and stuff. So again, just having a lot of those parts that are highly sought after, and knowing that I have all that stuff from my childhood still compatible with all the stuff I'm buying now is really helpful.
Yeah, that's really cool. The monorail, is that I don't know much about Lego Monorail, but how old is the monorail, do you think?
I will admit that I am not up on like details of sets as some other AFOLs are. I think the first monorail came out sometime in the 80s. There were, as far as I know, I think 3 monorails. There was the original Space or Futuron monorail. There was a city airport monorail, and then they released a second space monorail that was, I can't remember the name of the space thing. I think it was Utron or something. It was one of the later space themes, but still one I consider like a classic space theme.
I thought it was Mtron. Was it?
No, there was another one. There was they had yellow helmets with blue visors. I'd have to look it up. It might have been Unitron or Utron. It was not Mtron though.
Okay.
I know they went along with a theme called Spirius. That was like they had this big robot, which as a kid I thought was cool, and now I have mechs that are much more elaborate than that robot. Though that robot still holds a special place in my heart.
Yeah. I mean, I look back at some of my favorite sets from when I was little. I mean, I started collecting probably in, I want to say my first set was probably from 2008. So, I mean, just to give scale, that's when I started collecting, and I probably wasn't, probably like 6 or 7. I was not very old, or I think I was older than a lot of my friends were when I started collecting Lego. But, I mean, I look back and I rebuilt one of those sets not too long ago. It was like a Power Miners thing, and it's a messy set. It's a bad set, but it's cool to have it rebuilt and know that all those parts were from my collection, and I didn't have to buy one secondhand. So
I will agree with you. You know, some of the classic space, I loved them as a kid, and then now I look at them and the detail was so inelegant and they look kind of, messy. But they paved the way for some of the stuff we have now. And I've seen some good mocks of people that have updated the sets to a more classic or to more modern, sleeker look.
Yeah. I like, I think a lot of those great parts that, for those custom, I've seen a ton of those redesigns for classic space sets and even custom sets. I've seen a few, especially from Fazoom. He's been making all sorts of great spaceships and Blacktron stuff. But, I mean, a lot of these parts are... It's so nice using new parts to recreate old stuff, is what I'm saying. I saw, like, someone took the Benny spaceship set from the Lego movie, and they tried to remake it into... I don't know their names, but some classic spaceship. And it's cool how... like, maybe these sets are outdated, but it's a fun challenge to go back and try to recreate a modernized version of a model. So,
yeah. At the same time, a lot of those classic space sets, especially, they had some weird, interesting parts, especially like canopy parts and stuff that you wouldn't get nowadays. I mean, you do have some interesting stuff nowadays, but just really weird, wild things. Even just like the molded base plates that they used to do that are so Like you don't find anything like that nowadays. Not that those molded base plates are necessarily useful in mocks, but they're interesting.
Yeah. Are you talking about like the ones that have like the craters and stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or even like there's a pretty standard one that has like a ramp up and then there's like a little pit in the middle. It was used in a lot of castle sets. It was used in a lot of space sets. But just some weird, like the molded base plates.
I have a few of the. It's probably from like. Again, I don't know the names of these themes and which ones they correlate with, but I have some underwater ones, and I'm sure they're from like Aqua Raiders or something.
The Aquanauts had a
Aquanauts.
The Aquanauts, who were the good guys, and the Aqua Sharks were the bad guys. And the Aquanauts had a undersea base, which I actually one of the sets that I had as a kid. That had these really wild molded blue base plates, but they worked really well for that set.
Yeah, there's like I don't know, like 2 or 3 or 4 or something. There's a lot because I have like I think 2 or 3 in my collection right now. That I've just never been able to use in a mock, but they're kind of wacky.
I have not been able to use a lot of those things in mocks either, but I always am like, well, I hope to someday.
Yeah, I mean it's cool taking really weird parts and using them in an interesting way. I think that's something that I see a lot of people that do that well. But I mean, if y'all are ever interested in trying to figure out how new weird parts work, I would just recommend checking out New Elementary. They have some of the coolest part usages, and it's some really strange stuff that I would never think of using a part for. So, but anyways, so after your dark age and stuff, and you came back to building Lego, when did you start interacting with the community and posting Lego online?
Well, I started interacting with a local lug probably about a year after I got into Lego as an adult. They actually, I'm in Connecticut, and when I got back into Lego, they had the Danbury store, but they had opened one about 8 months after I got into Lego in West Hartford, and I thought like, oh, it's the coolest thing, and I got a thing in the mail of they were having a grand opening, and I got there to early in the morning because I wanted to get the door prizes, and I'm like, oh, no one's going to be crazy enough to be at the store, and then I'm like 50th in line. I'm like, oh my goodness, there are other crazy Lego fans out there. And so that was my introduction to the community. I got to talking to some of them in the line. And I was always aware of the online community. I really didn't get into it that, until fairly recently. I was friends with Kevin Hinkle because he was here in Connecticut, or he is here in Connecticut, and so I knew him in person. It wasn't until unfortunately the pandemic hit and we sort of had to stay at home that I really got more into the online community, and not having anywhere to go or anything to do, I started tuning into more YouTube streams. I started trying to post things to Instagram myself just to share as I worked through my backlog that I had built up. And yeah, so probably, again, with the online community, only about like just the past year, really.
Wow, so that's more recent than I thought. But yeah. I saw you on a bunch of Kevin streams. So
what's that?
I saw you on a bunch of the backlog building streams before it got discontinued.
Yeah. So I did join. I know Kevin had run a few backlog building streams like 2 or 3 years ago, and being friends with him, I had joined a couple of those. But I really didn't start posting to Instagram or stuff till just recently, which also explains why I don't yet have anything on my YouTube channel. Just haven't gotten around to it. but hopefully that will happen soon.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. It'd be cool to see, since you have the monorail, I think a good video idea would be to do something monorail related, because as you said, not many AFOLs can say that they have a full on monorail setup. So.
Well, yeah, and unfortunately with the monorail, the track that it came with, the monorail track, I have very little of it, and it is just enough. They gave you just enough in the set to make a loop similar to what if you buy one of the train sets now, about the size of that loop, which is not that impressive.
Yeah.
It does look nice when it runs, and it has a very different, sort of a smoother feel to it than the powered up trains that they have now. It's just I need to somehow get more track, which is unfortunately very expensive. Because what I have right now does not really look terribly impressive in terms of, especially in the scope of my city.
Yeah. So, that's awesome. So, I mean, I remember seeing you were building a bunch of the Monkey Kid sets and stuff. So I'm guessing that that's a theme that you've been interested in.
Yeah, I don't know, my interests vary all over the place. I started, and I still have a affinity for the modular buildings. Obviously I have an affinity for classic space, but really as an adult it's more the modular buildings. That said, I've branched out a bit, and I really appreciate like the mechs, like the Monkey Kid or the Monkey King mech that they released, which is really nice. I've been trying to get a lot more of the interesting, visually interesting sets. And then I'm also a fan of a lot of the ideas sets.
Oh, yes.
My collection has grown quite a bit, to the point where it's not really limited to the city anymore.
Yeah.
And it's really just whatever sets catch my eye. Mostly a lot of things that remind me of the classic space, again, like Ninjago sets or Monkey Kid sets, have sort of that, sci-fi feel to them.
Yeah. And I know you've mentioned them, and I don't necessarily love them, but the Nexo Knights and even, Chima to an extent. I'm guessing you like most of those unlicensed themes.
What's that?
I'm guessing you like most of those unlicensed themes.
Yeah, I'm not actually a huge fan of the Star Wars stuff, because it's almost like I know what those ships look like, and I've certainly bought a couple Star Wars sets, but the unlicensed themes are they're a little more creative, they're a little more freeform. Yeah. Again, sort of reminiscent of the classic space sets. And again, like you said, Nexo Knights or Chima, even if I wasn't a huge fan of some of those themes always had an interesting, unique style to them.
Yeah.
And they also give you a lot more interesting elements.
Yes, for sure. That's an argument I always make. I don't love Nexo Knights, and I do love Chima, but I always make that argument when someone goes against them is, even if you don't like the source material, you don't like the show they're based around, you don't like the things in general, maybe even the set design, you have to appreciate the parts that came in those sets.
Yeah.
You got stuff like Nexo Knights, you got all these weird geometrical shapes that are just so cool, and cool canopies and armor stuff. And the Chima, you get so much olive green and orange and crazy stuff. So,
I know some fans were disappointed with Nexo Knights that it wasn't castle and it wasn't space, but to me, I was like, well, this is, it does feel like space, like classic space to an extent with those colors, and yeah, all the parts. I just built a hidden side set this evening, and it had two of the little. Pentagon shield pieces that originally came in Nexo Knights, and those were they were just used for the powered up, the power-up shields and Nexo Knights
Yeah.
when they came out, but they're used in like so many sets now.
Yeah.
As a nice little architectural feature.
Yeah. They're absolutely amazing pieces. They're just really great. Sets like, you know, in your Dark Age or any themes that you've wanted to go back and collect more of?
Not really. I don't know. I've looked at some of the stuff that came out. The one that was still out on the tail end, it was on its tail end when I first got back in, was Galaxy Squad, which was sort of like a lot like their last original space theme.
Yeah.
And so I kind of I thought that was very visually interesting, but I don't have too many of those sets. But I mean, for better or for worse, there's a lot of the stuff in the Dark Ages that people are really excited about. I was not into Lego for like adventurers or agents or I'm trying to think of some of the other ones.
Bionicle?
I'm not really into Bionicle that much. I appreciate what it did for Lego as a company and a theme, because a lot of those Bionicle parts are now being used in like the mechs and stuff.
Yeah.
But I personally was not super interested in just the purely Bionicle sets.
Yeah. I mean, I was just wondering because, I mean, it seems like the time span you missed out on, or the tail end of your Dark Age was when I started collecting Lego, is what it seems like to me. So, I mean, I don't know for certain. Was Alien Conquest before or after Galaxy Squad?
Just before
Okay.
Galaxy Squad.
Okay, because you said it was the last one. I couldn't remember if Alien Conquest was before or after. But, I mean, you missed out on Indiana Jones, Power Miners, all those.
Yeah. Like, some of those I might be interested in, like, I'm a fan of Indiana Jones, so if I was ever able to get one of those sets, I would certainly not turn it down. I will say, like, some of the themes, like, so the Haunted House that came out earlier this year, it's a beautiful haunted house. It has a lot of nods to, I think it's the Adventurers line.
Yeah.
Like the Orient Expedition with, it shows how out of the loop I am. Like characters like Sam Sinister.
Yeah.
And I don't know who those characters are because I wasn't here for that theme or wasn't in it for that theme at that time. I appreciate that they worked in all those references. That it's just unfortunately, because that was from my Dark Ages, they're slightly lost on me.
Yeah.
And some of the enthusiasm for those themes that I see in other AFOLs, I don't have.
Yeah, I can get that. I mean, there's like, I haven't had a Dark Age, but I mean, I just as someone who didn't grow up with that stuff, I look at these notes and it's like I can really appreciate the fact that they do that. But I feel like I'm not really going to have a big moment like that until next year when the 10-year anniversary of Ninjago happens. Because, I mean, that's when Ninjago was the theme that really pulled me into Lego. It was such a creative and fun theme when it first came out, and it really just works in every way.
Yeah, and that's one that when I got into Lego as an adult, I was not interested in the Ninjago at all, and I've slowly started getting more and more of those sets. Just again because they're so interesting.
Yeah.
And I don't get a lot of them. I try to pick and choose, but like I have most of the Ninjago movie sets. Those are they're just well designed sets.
They're fantastic.
And I will say, like probably one of my, if not my favorite set, is Ninjago City.
That is my favorite set.
It is just and for someone that is not a Ninjago fan, it was still a fun build with all the detail.
Oh, yes.
It's just such a creative and beautiful set.
It really is fantastic. I didn't get the docks, and one thing I'm so torn on. You go.
It's so much better with the docks, though. It's almost like they clearly meant it to be one complete set, but they split it into two.
Wow. I always just saw the like the Ninjago City is tall and skinny, and the Docks is like short and fat. But I was like, I don't think they mesh well. But I mean, if they really do, then it's awesome.
Yeah, they complement each other very well. So I'm glad I ended up, once I built Ninjago City, I was like, I got to get the Docks when that comes out.
Yeah, I mean, it's still a great set. I just feel, based on what I've seen, now I've not seen them together in person, and I need to see them to make a definite opinion, but I think that they're both really good on their own, but I mean, I think it's just the design choice is kind of contrasting. I wish they were both built on a 32 by 32 base plate, and that's what I'm excited for the next one, is it seems to be a tall one like Ninjago City. Now, I don't think I'm going to get it, but it's awesome.
I've heard the rumors about that, and I'm certainly interested in that to see what it actually looks like, how big it's gonna be. Because again, even as someone who's not a Ninjago fan, the Ninjago City like really captured my attention.
Yeah, I feel like for every Lego fan I know, whether they like Ninjago or hate it, they all have this just joy for Ninjago City. It really just seems like one of the best Lego sets they've made to date in anything. It's really fantastic.
Yeah, I would agree.
But based on the next one's coming out, I mean, I don't think it's as much based off the movie as it is the show, because it's the 10-year anniversary and everything. But at the same time, it's like, we've heard rumors of 6,000 pieces and stuff like that, and it's like,
yeah,
it's going to be at least $400 or $500, and I don't know if I'm willing to spend that money. I really want to, but I don't think I can.
I'll have to see what it looks like.
Yeah.
Given that I already have Ninjago City and the Docks, I would lean toward buying it. But yeah, like back to our previous point, I am not personally happy about the way that prices have been sort of creeping upward.
Yeah.
And like, yes, like they're often like higher piece count sets, but you know, there's only so many high piece count sets that you can afford to buy in a certain time.
Yeah. I mean, I probably have, let's see, I'd have to think about it. I would say I have maybe 4 or 5 sets with over even 1,000 pieces. One of those is Stranger Things. The other one is Ninjago City, and then the rest are probably 1,500 pieces and less. Oh, no, the Hidden Side High School, too. That's close to 1,700. But it's, at least I think it is. But honestly, for someone my age especially, most of these big sets aren't affordable. I don't have a well-paying job, and it's like, even though the 10-year anniversary is such a big deal, and I would give anything to buy this set, it's getting to the point where it's like, I really need to start spending my money on other things too.
Yeah.
Especially going off to college next year. So
that's kind of my concern about it as well. In addition to me just not, you know, even though I have the money, like I don't really like when the sets get more expensive, but it does bother me on some level. It is a children's toy. As much as I love Lego, I'm not going to pretend that it's something that it's not. It is a children's toy. And
yes,
it does bother me on some level when they start like upping the price of this toy. And then it's like, well, children can't really access that then.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I like what they're, speaking of kind of the age thing, I like what they've done with the 18 plus stuff. That really brings joy to my heart, knowing that they're finally, I mean, obviously they know that there are adult fans of Lego out there. They've known that for a long time. It's always been that way. But it's nice to know that they're really showing that they know that now by releasing all these sets that are really geared towards adults. And I actually have really high hopes that we will get more. Now, I don't know for certain based on their guidelines in general, but I think that we'll be getting some, obviously not like, like explicit stuff, but I think we'll be getting some more mature themed and licensed stuff eventually too.
Yeah, I'm interested to see where that goes. Because I think, again, like my complaint about high price point sets, I think is a lot of the ones the 18 coming out with. But I think they are testing out, like, see what. The 8 now seem all over the place. The Haunted House, I mean, is plus set, but so was the NES that they just released.
Yeah.
The brick-built NES. And then the portraits that they released as well, the 4 portraits that they released that are made out of little tiles.
Yeah, the mosaics.
All of those fall... Yeah, the mosaics. That's right. All of those fall under the 18 plus line, and it feels a little scattered at the moment.
Yeah.
But I think they're testing things out, and they're hopefully eventually going to sort of figure out what sells and what doesn't, and maybe rein in some of those high price point sets a bit, and just focus on a couple that, you know, will really grab the attention of adults.
Yeah. I mean, one thing that I've compared it to in the past is, I mean, we've had some strange choices for, like, especially with Dimensions packs. I mean, we got, like, Beetlejuice, we got the A-Team. I'm guessing, based on those decisions, and even, like, Indiana Jones, I think we're going to get... and they'll probably start experimenting, like you said, with some of those things. I'm guessing, like, in 2021, we'll be getting at least something that we wouldn't have gotten before the 18-plus theme. So...
And we saw that a bit with Stranger Things as well.
Yeah.
That is a very unusual set for them to release.
Especially with, like, the show and how mature it is. Compared to other LEGO themes, corresponding licenses.
But you know, having built the set, it is a nice set, and it is a nice, you know, as someone who's a fan of the show, it's a really nice set.
Yeah, it really does justice to what it represents.
So I'm interested to see what they come up with for 18 plus things that, especially with themes like that might clearly, you know, attract adults a bit more.
Yeah. I can see them doing $200 D2Cs based off of weird licensed things. Like, yeah. I mean, I guess you could put it that way with the large Batmobile they released. Something like that. I can see them doing large vehicles, bringing back to the A-Team. I doubt they'll make another A-Team thing, but I can see them making the A-Team van or something like that. Something just to compare it to something. That's the kind of thing I can see them making and experimenting with. Something recognizable that comes with desirable minifigures.
Yeah. And that's what I mean when I look at things being a little scattered right now. Like the mosaics, for example, are cool. I don't know of too many people personally that are super interested in them.
Yeah.
Enough to spend, you know, it's like $120, I think, and
yeah,
it's cool, but it's not something that I am super interested in.
Yeah.
So I think they're just sort of testing out to see what sells, what doesn't, and hopefully they'll focus in on some things like the Stranger Things set, like you said, some weird licensed stuff that we wouldn't normally get.
Yeah. And speaking of the Stranger Things, I can see them making, corresponding with Season 4, whenever it releases, I can totally see them making another Stranger Things set. At least one more before they give up that, the whole make Stranger Things sets gimmick. But I think they can, I can see them making one more, for sure, based on how well the last one sold. It's probably one of the better selling LEGO sets in the past few years. Because, I mean, I know a lot of people that aren't LEGO fans at all that have bought it.
Yeah, it clearly, like, hit that niche that, like, a lot of people are Stranger Things fans, and it, the set clearly, like, spoke to them.
Yeah.
And I think that's they're trying. I think with the 18 plus, it does feel like they are trying to strike a balance because they're, as a company, they're trying to market to more than just the dedicated AFOL community. And so some of the sets they're releasing are clearly marketed toward people that are not, dedicated AFOLs. But there are some things in there that are also clearly, there's something in there that says they are at least recognizing or trying to market toward the AFOLs as well.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of like the NES set, so that is sort of playing off the nostalgia, but also there are some interesting little. I don't know if you've built it yet.
I don't own it.
Okay. I won't spoil it, but there are some interesting nods to other things in there that, like building techniques that an AFOL would appreciate, but, something that also a Nintendo fan would appreciate.
Yeah. See, that's another set that's selling incredibly well. That's the kind of thing that I think they really need to be pushing for right now. I mean, that's a $250 set, right? Or close to.
Yeah, somewhere around there.
It's still in that, I mean, it's expensive, but it's still in what I would call the quote-unquote affordable range. It's not, like, horribly, atrociously priced, like the Diagon Alley or Ninjago City, even. It's something that an adult like you, even if they're not a fan of Lego, could go out and buy, and it wouldn't be hurting them too much to spend that.
Yeah, I think I agree completely. The in terms of price point, that somewhere between $200 and $300 is the sweet spot for high price point sets.
Yes,
and I know that I don't own the Millennium Falcon. I know people that do. It is a beautiful set. Personally, I can't justify that much on one set.
I cannot either. I'd rather buy two Ninjago Cities than the Millennium Falcon.
As much as I want it, I can't justify that on one set.
Yeah.
But I think that that $200 to $300 range is a nice price point for adults who are looking for a higher end set without going absolutely nuts.
Yeah, or a modular building. Even if we're talking high price point sets, it's between $100 and $200 usually, and they're all really great. They're really nicely detailed, and it's a nice thing to display, and you can get multiple of them. I mean, you cannot go wrong with a modular building.
Yeah, they're ones that I have all the modulars. I was able to track down, or at least bricklink the parts for the ones that came out during my dark ages. But yeah, I have all of them, and I've bought multiples of several of them because they are nice, and you can use those. The bricks that come in them are just beautiful for building other stuff.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, what I usually do with a set is, especially at the hidden side, I bought most, if not all, of the hidden sides, and I took apart most of them after a few months, and just for parts. And I can see that with the modulars too. I mean, you go and you look at them. If you are into building buildings, especially, you get so many nice texturing bricks, like exclusive colors for pieces. I saw someone who took 3 copies of the corner garage and made a really big garage.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of those too. I did a double pet shop because I liked the pet shop, but it it was only a 16 stud wide, so I doubled that up to make it a full 32. I've added several floors to the town hall, so that it's the tallest building in my city.
Awesome.
But that's the type of thing. If you can get a couple of them, you can easily expand them.
Yeah, for sure. Because most of those floors are pretty similar in their exterior design, so you can just stack, make like skyscrapers. I've seen people take, this is just my example, but even if like mirroring it, like 2 corners, I saw someone who took Ninjago City, 2 copies, mirrored them, and put them together. And it looks awesome. Like, that's something I'm interested in, and I don't even want to buy another Ninjago City. So, but anyways, I think that's close to all the time we have for now. We've been going for like 40 minutes or something. So, but thank you all so much for watching. Yet again, his YouTube and Instagram will be linked down in the description, so you can go check out both of those. Like and subscribe and follow all of his stuff. And thank you all so much for watching, and thank you to him for being on the stream. It was awesome talking to you, Steve. And
thank you for having me.
Of course. And I will see you all in the next episode, which will probably be another 2 or 3 weeks from now. So I'll see you then. Have a great day and a wonderful week. Zbricks out.